Well, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Jack Sutton. I'm one of the three co-chairs for the Ohio River Recreation Trail. I'm actually a resident of Aurora, and as one of the three chairs, I'm representing Indiana primarily. David's from Kentucky, Brewster's from Ohio, so I'm kind of the Indiana guy. Born and raised in Aurora, so just upstream from Rising Sun, very familiar with Rising Sun. Spent a lot of my youth paddling the tributaries, and I've even paddled from Aurora to Rising Sun and from Rising Sun to Rabbit Hash. So extremely familiar with your community, and we're so happy that you're part of this Rivertown review process. First of all, I want to thank Kendall Miller. She's been fantastic for the last several months in helping us coordinate things with Rising Sun. And Kendall, I know you're on the phone. I don't know if I got a question. I'm going to pose a question to our folks from Rising Sun, a real easy one. I'd like to, before we jump into the full agenda, is ask each of you who are from Rising Sun, just introduce yourself, maybe the organization you're with, and then tell us one place you take a visitor in Rising Sun when they come to visit you. So Kendall, could you go first, please?
Sure. I'm Kendall Miller. I'm the director of Rising Sun Ohio County Tourism, which is not our official name, but probably the easiest to remember. I've been director here for sneaking up on 5 years now, and one of my favorite places in Rising Sun is the riverfront. There's nothing more relaxing and beautiful than being down at the end of Main Street and just watching all the boats go by, grab a lunch, eat your lunch along the riverfront, and just chill out. You can watch the ferry now go across the river from Rising Star Casino over to Rabbit Hash, and it's just a very relaxing place to be. And you'll see a lot of the locals and tourists out walking the riverfront. So it's kind of our gathering place down there, and just a fun and relaxing place to be. And it kind of showcases our whole town there. So that's where I like to take people, along with restaurants and some of our shops and everything.
Great. Thank you, Kendall. How about Jamie? Jamie Bell, can you unmute yourself? Since you're an associated park person, I'm going to go to you next.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie, and I am the park director for Rising Sun in Ohio County. I actually grew up in Rising Sun, so very proud of Rising Sun. One of the places that I like to take family when they come into town is down to Riverfront Park. It's down below town. It's a very nice small park with a lot of walking, hiking trails and some shelter houses and things like that. It's very quiet down there. It's also where our high school cross country team runs their home cross country meets, and it's a very cool, hard, difficult course, but it's a true cross country course, and it's really cool for the high schoolers to be able to run their courses like that. So that's where I like to go, is Riverfront Park, to take our visitors.
Thank you. How about
Thank
Cliff?
you.
Cliff, can you jump on, unmute yourself?
Good morning, everybody. My name's Cliff Tees. I'm the executive director of the Ohio County Historical Society. I've had this chair to be 9 years in May. Prior to that, I was on the board of directors for the society. I'm also the appointed Ohio County historian with the state. If there's many sites here in town, it's hard to pick one. Recently, we just rolled out Rising Sun as an official Underground Railroad town. So I think right now the main focus, I take them to the Berkshire House, which is a structure still standing and was the home of a well-known Black abolitionist family here in Rising Sun with connections to Rabbit Hash in Boone County, Kentucky. So we're quite proud of that. And that's been one of our main focuses here lately, is the Underground Railroad. And we just had a new state marker installed at that site.
Thank you, Cliff. How about Lane Seekman? Lane, I know you've been with economic development and maybe some other things.
Yeah, I just turned my camera off. Yeah, good morning. I'm Lane Seekman. I do a lot of stuff, and like Jamie and Cliff, we're all lifelong residents of the community. I work with the Ohio County Economic Development Corporation. I also practice law here in the community for 30 years. when we get visitors that come to town, it's not very hard to put them in the car and drive them all around the community. Show them everything. I agree with Cliff. There are many things to show. The riverfront is so important. It's a nice place to stop. A little park, and the view. It's wonderful. Our community park behind the school's a wonderful place to go. The museum that Cliff runs is a great place as well. The whole town itself is almost like a little park. It's almost like a little resort community in and of itself. And we're very happy to show Rising Sun off to everyone.
Thank you, Lane. I appreciate that. Michael, are you from Rising Sun? Michael Schilling?
No, I'm with the National Park Service,
Okay.
RTCA. Thank you.
Sorry, you're the one name I wasn't recognizing out there. So is there anyone else on the call from Rising Sun that I may have missed? Okay, very good. Well, thank you. Again, thank you guys for joining us this morning. We've got a really a full agenda, and I'm going to get us started. Just a little overview for those of you who may not be familiar. The Rivertown review process is something that we put together about 6 months ago. So the Ohio River Recreation Trail group, with the help of the National Park Service, and you're going to hear from some of those folks shortly, solicited input, solicited applications from all the river communities up and down the Ohio River, from Portsmouth, Ohio to West Point, Kentucky, and invited communities to participate in this process. And in a nutshell, it's putting a fresh set of eyes on that Rivertown community. So you're actually the fourth group we've been working with over the last several months. One was New Richmond, Ohio. And then we've just recently completed a call with Carrollton, Kentucky. Earlier in the fall, or I guess in December, we had our Rivertown review with 3 communities across from Louisville. That would be New Albany, Jeffersonville, and Clarksville, Indiana. So Rising Sun is kind of the fourth group to be in round 1. We fully anticipate to have a round 2 coming up in the spring, and I know Aurora and Lawrenceburg have already submitted applications to be a part of that process. So our goal, obviously, is to give you immediate feedback. You're going to hear a lot today, and then you will receive a packet from us in a few weeks, maybe about a month, which will kind of be the deliverable of all the work that's gone into this project. But the ultimate goal is maybe in the summer, late summer, when things calm down and we've all been vaccinated and we can get together in person safely and have a summit, a Rivertown Review Summit. So I'm going to extend an invitation today to all of you to be thinking about that. We don't have a date selected. We don't have a venue. We'll pick a place that's convenient to most folks. But the idea would be get all these community towns together and discuss the feedback, compare peer information and really steal good ideas from some of these other communities. So stay tuned with Kendall. We'll keep Kendall informed about that process, but that's something we want to accomplish in 2021. With that, I want to hand it off to our third co-chair, Brewster Rhodes. Brewster is from Cincinnati, and one of the things Brewster's been involved with that you may have heard about is Paddle Fest. Cincinnati's Paddle Fest is nearing its 20th anniversary in 2021, and Brewster is kind of the champion of that event. He's also involved with things like Adventure Crew, Green Umbrella. Personally, I've known Brewster almost 20 some years. Fantastic guy and a great champion for all things outdoor and adventure. So Brewster, can you share a little bit more about what we do?
Well, first, Jack, thank you very much for your leadership. It's wonderful working with you and David. And friends from Rising Sun, thanks so much for your engagement today. I love Rising Sun, just a personal point of view here, statement. You have, no question, the best, most boater-friendly facilities and riverfront, at least in the Cincinnati region, from New Richmond down to where you are. During the last fall, I took over 7 different segments, a trip from New Richmond to Rising Sun, doing 10, 15 miles a day, and then biking back to my truck, and then going back to get my boat, etc., just to see how easy it was to a self-contained paddle and bike ride, shuttling myself. And when you paddle into Rising Sun and see the wonderful boat dock that you have there during the season, the ramp you have for power boats, the ease with which you can you leave your boat at the boat ramp or the dock and just walk 2 blocks into town, just have a wonderful tour of the historic buildings and just check out the beauty of your downtown. It's ideal. And frankly, you have so much of what we want to encourage other communities to develop. Such as I say, your transient boat dock is just fantastic. We don't even have a transient boat dock in the city of Cincinnati anymore. I'm working with folks to help make that happen. And New Richmond doesn't have one, unfortunately, and so many other communities don't have what you've already invested in with partners from the state and the federal level. So we hold you up in so many ways as a model for what we would like to encourage and work to help make happen in other communities. So that's just a way to start things off. But I've been working with Jack and David for the last 2 years and a wonderful group of volunteers. We're all volunteers on this project to help develop the concept of the Ohio River Recreation Trail, which is very simple. It's saying there's a segment of the Ohio, and we've picked Portsmouth to West Point, just below to Louisville, which already has an incredible number of historic river communities, 30 plus, each of which go way back in history in terms of Underground Railroad and the opening up of the West, development of the economy and of the Midwest itself. So what we are trying to do is recognize that there's this incredible necklace with these pearls every 10 miles just about of communities that each of which has a unique set of historical background and treasures and experiences that people can take advantage of. And we're trying to think through, how can we develop a nationally recognized recreation trail for on the land and the water for cyclists, power boaters, paddlers, anglers, nature lovers, bird watchers, that people will want to come to not only from this region, but from around the country and experience. Especially when people aren't jumping on airplanes and flying to the Rockies or going to Maine or going abroad. So we are trying to work or think of what is it going to take to help make that happen. And one of those is a website which we've developed that gives people a basic information about the trail, the river towns along it, the opportunities to enjoy it, information about safety as well. And then we, through what you'll hear about in a second, developed with David Rutter and the Regional Council of Governments, OKI, an incredible tool for people to use that helps them understand what's where, what are the amenities along the trail in a very user-friendly fashion so that people can design their own trips, whether it's by car, by boat, by bike, and spend time in these river communities. And it's a very unique, exciting tool. We've been working hard with the 3 state departments of natural resources for Indiana DNR, for Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, and of course Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We held a meeting in Lawrenceburg a year ago to help promote collaboration among those 3 state agencies to help them think through what they could do to partner with us to help build infrastructure out and do marketing and promotion to help draw people to this incredible natural resource. So the bottom line is that we have a vision for developing this trail as, again, a nationally recognized destination for adventure, for outdoor recreation and adventure that we believe will draw people to all of your communities and help develop the constituency of awareness about, concern for, support for the Ohio River, this incredible natural resource we have flowing through the heart of our communities. We know you have a history, long time history with the river. And you know, I know you want to share your the assets that you have. We believe we can be a vehicle to help get the word out about what you all have to offer and help drive traffic and tourism and economic development to you. And we look forward to being a partner with you in this effort. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to another set of wonderful partners, and that is our great friends from the National Park Service. And Andrea Ireland will take over now. Andrea and Russ Clark, you'll hear from in a minute, work for what's called the Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program of the National Park Service, and they will describe to you what that's all about. But we've been blessed to be able to work with them with us to help sharpen what we're trying to accomplish, develop this Rivertown Review Program, and a variety of other aspects of the project. So we're so grateful, and Andrea, let Debbie take it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Brewster. And what a joy it is to work with this group of volunteers on such a project. As Brewster said, I'm with the National Park Service, a program called Rivers Trails Conservation Assistance. And that is a program that uses the second half of the mission statement of the National Park Service to go out into communities and to help them to get projects done in the areas of conservation, recreation, and more. Russell Clark is also an RTCA person. We're working on this together. We also have the assistance of Helen Sievers out of the Kentucky office, and Faith Welty is helping us as well to take notes here. But we go where we're invited, and this wonderful crew of volunteers had a great vision of what they wanted to do, and they invited RTCA in, made application for our assistance. We are a technical assistance program, so we don't come with funding, but we like to say that we make projects more fundable, and we do provide great value with our community assistance in helping communities and projects to work the process to find success, on the ground success that benefits everybody. So part of what working with them, we developed a work plan, and part of that work plan was to do these Rivertown reviews. We wanted to truly engage the communities in our efforts to develop the Ohio River Recreation Trail. What are the benefits that they can realize, how it can be mutually beneficial to both of us, to both projects. And so we did it with an application process, which you were one of the first ones to jump on there and apply. We selected a few communities to be our pilot programs, our pilot projects, and that was Rising Sun, Carrollton, and New Richmond. And then we also took on a special project of the 3 communities in Southern Indiana in coordination with David Wicks and his class out of the University of Louisville. So we selected those communities to be our pilot. So in some ways you are guinea pigs for us. We're working to improve this process and have it be a sustainable process that the ORRT committee can take with them into the future to continue to engage communities along the way. It was our intention, even though we developed this when we were already in COVID, it has always been our intention that these would be much better in person. We'd really like to see your town and all the towns along the Ohio. But we did a lot of work to pivot and make it as successful as it could be so that we could at least begin the process of engaging communities and help them to maybe see some ways out of the current situation, utilizing outdoor recreation, the river, their community assets for tourism. So we were originally supposed to do a visitor assessment. We wanted to send people into the community to take a look without the influence of others in the community, to say what they saw, to give you a perspective that's different. It was our hope that we could go there as well, those of us who haven't been to Rising Sun, unlike Brewster and Jack. So we were unable to do that. We wanted to also have a tour of the town with key community leaders so we could hear what their vision was for the community, what they saw as their assets. And we wanted this particular meeting, in fact, to be of the entire community in person. And so we are trying to make the best out of this. And I think that the Rivertown reviews are really good for putting that fresh set of eyes, whether it is an outsider or whether it is you in your own community, looking at things in a different way, from a different perspective, and not just at the positive things that you have going on, which are good, and how can you build upon those, but also where there are some challenges, where there could be improvements, where there is some low-hanging fruit that may be extremely beneficial as we enter another recreation season, and capturing all that the ORRT can be and your own community in relation to the Ohio River. So we are hoping that you get some of that out of today, a fresh set of eyes and a new perspective on your community. The other piece that, well, many pieces, but one other piece that we have been working on is these online tools, which I'm going to introduce you to the people who are working on those. But one connection is another National Park Service unit, and that is the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. And we've been working with Derek Schimmel out of Colorado. He's with Solomar International, and he will tell you about what he does. But this has been a very important relationship for looking at how the ORRT fits into the even bigger picture of the Lewis and Clark Trail, the river beyond what we currently have defined. And they're already realizing some of the benefits of this kind of tourism, sustainable tourism throughout the Lewis and Clark Trail. So I'll let Derek talk a little bit more about that. And so Derek, take it away.
Thank you, Andrea. Good morning, everyone. And Brewster, Jack, David, thank you all so much for that great introduction. I'm really excited to chat with you all today. In particular, as Andrea said, this is this is now the fourth Rivertown review that we've done, but I'm especially excited with Rising Sun in that I've worked with Kendall now for probably about 9 months. Rising Sun was one of our first community partners on the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. With her help and the help of her team, we've had, I believe, close to 40 nominations on our interactive map guide, everything from restaurants to the riverfront antique shops to seaplanes. Max Seaplanes is on there. So we have a really, really fantastic following in Rising Sun. So it's really, really great to chat with you all today and kind of remind you of the efforts that Kendall has put forward and give you a little bit more background about our geotourism program. You may have seen a billboard, Kendall, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this went up probably about 6 to 8 months ago, stating that Rising Sun is in fact on the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and just bring you to our platform so that we can have a visual of what it is that we're seeing. And I hope that you're seeing it right, because I just got some new technology set up. So this is our digital platform, the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail Experience. Essentially, what the National Park Service is doing is building out sustainable tourism methodology along the Lewis and Clark Trail. So up until May of 2019, the trail stretched from St. Louis, just outside St. Louis, to Astoria, Oregon, on the Pacific coast. An act of Congress changed that to include the eastern expansion. So now the trail stretches all the way from Pittsburgh to the coast of the Pacific. In that, a lot of the different communities along the Ohio River and the Mississippi are now included, one of which is Rising Sun and some other towns in Ohio County. So we're really thrilled to be working with a new set of communities. As you can see here, this is the basis of our entire platform. So what we're trying to do is share the stories and experiences that connect the places along the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail to current culture and history. A lot of people see this program and they think, well, our town doesn't have much of a history with the Lewis and Clark Trail, with the core discovery. That's fine. What we want to do is link the past to the present. We're acting as a conduit to bring all of these different pieces together, so that if somebody is in fact touring the trail, and just a little side note here, one thing we are really excited about, and I think we're well positioned along with the Ohio River Recreation Trail as well, as a result of COVID, domestic tourism is up. A lot of people are staying local, not flying. Brewster, you had mentioned flying to the Rocky Mountains, but a lot of people aren't flying at all. They're getting in their car, They're driving with their families. There's a new trend toward road schooling, so a lot of education on the road. These types of programs, the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail, OORT, are very well positioned to receive this new type of tourist. Outdoor recreation, so it's safe, socially distant, and it really provides a great opportunity to experience authentic America, one that a lot of folks may have lost sight of over the years as the world has become flatter. So going back to the platform here, you can see we have an interactive map guide. So the heart and soul of this project is based on this map guide. And if you zoom in, as I said, with the help of Kendall and her team, we've had quite a few places put up in Rising Sun. So it's really, really fantastic to see. And those of you, I'm not sure if anybody is visiting from Rabbit Hash on this call, but as you can see, it's a blank slot here. So there's a lot of space. But jumping back in, if you click on any of these different bubbles, you can see we have the Blend on Main, we have the Imperial House Hotel, as I said, Max Seaplane Service, the Ohio County Historical Museum is already on here. Clicked on this one already. The River House. So there's so many different types of locations, and it's a great forum to tell you that anybody who has a local business that has a site attraction that speaks to the local culture, the current culture of Rising Sun, is welcome to join this program. You know, it's not only about history as it relates to Lewis and Clark Trail, but it's current culture as well. The way I like to describe it is you have somebody that might be kayaking down the river, take somebody like Brewster who was traveling down, he's learning about the history and culture of the river and possibly of the trail as he goes through it. And then 5 o'clock rolls around, we want to point him in the direction of a place to have a great local meal, a great local beer, stay in a local restaurant, a hotel or bed and breakfast. So we're keeping that those tourism dollars inside of the community. That's a really, really big piece of what we're trying to do. That economic sustainability is just as important as the cultural sustainability as well. So to get involved, you would click here. So it's quite simple. You would click login. You would enter, if you already are signed up, enter your username or email. If you're not, you'd click new account. And quite simply, you'd enter this information, register your account. You'll get an email that asks you to confirm. From there, you can confirm your account. And then you'll be able to log in and enter in your business site attraction onto our digital map guide. One quick note I do want to make, and this is specifically for Cliff and Christy with the Boone Conservancy and the Ohio County Historical Society. In addition to the interactive map guide, we also have a community partnership program. So what this does, this gives your community an official partnership with the National Park Service and allows you to advocate and steward the program into your community. It's especially important as we do try, again, celebrate the history of the Lewis and Clark National Historic Trail. And it's especially important for the Eastern expansion because a lot of this information is new. The National Park Service is still in the information gathering stage of better understanding how these sections better fit into the overall story of the core discovery. So from that kind of 30,000 foot level, again, for Cliff and Christy, I think this would be a fantastic program for you to be a part of so that you can then steward the program further inside of your destinations. It's a very quick form here. It comes to me on the back end, we review with MPS, and then we'll approve your application. One important note, this program is completely free. It's funded by the National Park Service. It will be here in perpetuity. There are other geotourism programs out there. Oftentimes they were sponsored by National Geographic. So Nat Geo kind of brought this idea of geotourism into the tourism ecosphere about 12 years ago. As a result of Disney purchasing them, they've since pulled the plug on most of these projects. We're really excited to have National Park Service as the backbone of this project because they will be here in perpetuity. From a service perspective and a financial perspective as well. So as people continue to travel more and take road trips along the middle of the United States, along the rivers, this platform will be a great place for them to get involved. I will be here around with any questions. I'll share my email address as well. But again, I really appreciate the time. Kendall, I thank you so much for all of your support over the last year. We look forward to ushering in the new year and seeing where 2021 takes us. Thank you so much. And I believe I will hand it over to David Rudder now to discuss the platform on OORT.
Good morning, everybody. So as Derek unshares his screen.
Derek, doing so, is trying to do so.
So I'll be sharing with you today
There we go.
the Ohio River Recreation Trail digital guide and what we have on the guide right now for the city of Rising Sun, and how you can get more points and other things in there. Is just one of the things in looking at what is already up on the Lewis and Clark website within those, that we don't have all of those sites included in the Ohio River Recreation Trail digital guide. And so you can basically kind of the same type of thing, nominating new points, suggesting new points. And so what you're looking at here, this is the digital guide page on the Ohio River Recreation Trail website. If you're on the main homepage for that, it's always going to be up here in the right-hand corner. Click on digital guide, it'll take you to this page. And once you get to this page, if you're not familiar with the guide at all, there's a short video that kind of runs through how to navigate through the guide, what type of information is there, as well as a button here to suggest new points. So if you want to add anything new, there's a new restaurant that comes in, or there's some new amenity within Rising Sun to add, you can do that. The other one is clicking on Explore the Guide. And so once you do that and click on it, it's going to take you, and I'm going to do it real quick because I've already got it loaded. It'll bring you into the guide, and you'll select which mode you want to look at the guide as. So are you looking at it as a boater, or are you looking at it as a biker? Biker also works for someone who's coming by car. And based upon what you pick is going to determine what gets shown on the guide, because there are some points that are specific to just the boaters and some that are specific just to people who are cyclists, and the majority of them are applicable to both. So you click on that agree, and what it's going to do is it'll bring up, if you have your location services turned on, the idea is being able to use this with your phone. It's going to show you right where you're at. So this being more or less close to where I'm at, not right on because I'm using my computer. It would be more accurate if I were on my phone. But if you're on your desktop, you want to go ahead and stop the location services. Otherwise, it keeps snapping back to your location. And then you can navigate around the guide. We're going to jump screens again because I've already got Rising Sun zoomed in. And so these are the points that we have for Rising Sun. We do have Rabbit Hash across the way with the general store there, the ferry connection, campgrounds that are across the way. And this is what we have. So if you zoom in a little closer, the emblems are set up so that this is the emblem to signify our river towns. It pops up. We get a picture of Rising Sun, links to the City of Rising Sun's website that can help somebody who doesn't know anything about it just to learn a little bit more about Rising Sun. If you see anything that's wrong on one of these points, there's also a button you can click to suggest an edit. And what that is going to do is generate an email that will come directly to me and telling me what that edit is that needs to be made. It helps if you give me some contact information too, if I have questions to get back to you, to get more information. So that's a means of helping to make sure that what we've got on the web, on the digital guide is accurate. I think the emblems are fairly self-explanatory. The stars are just kind of, that's our catch-all. These are points of interest. And so that can range from a lot of different things. A park, just a historic, well, actually we have a separate one for historical locations. So the Pendleton Arts Center being here on this particular one, again, links to the website for somebody who's traveling along the trail to be able to tell. So those are the points that are within Rising Sun. The other interesting stuff that we really are excited about that is of great benefit is the real-time AIS data. And there weren't there's not any barge traffic around Rising Sun, so we're going to come up here closer to Cincinnati. But what it does is it tells you, it turns on, you get an indication of where a boat is at. So this is commercial traffic or any traffic that has an AIS system on board, which is an automated identification system. It points in the direction it's traveling, what the speed is. It'll usually give you the name. And this updates regularly as we're going. So it looks like maybe, nope, that's, I don't know what happened to the Atlantis. If it's a circle, it's not moving at all. And there we go. So it was updating again. There's our Atlantis. Worried there for a second that it had disappeared. But this is really helpful to boaters who are on the water. Myself, an avid paddler, you know, you can't tell what's coming around the bend here. And so it's really nice to be able to kind of have that view, to be able to see and to get out of the way, because the big guys, they can't stop, they can't turn on a dime. So it's in my best interest to get out of their way and stay out of their way. So that's what the digital guide is. Within the layers, you can turn off different points if you want to only see, you know, you're only interested in what are the lodging options that are out there, stores. The other place that you can suggest edits is under the what's called the hamburger up here. And in the top of that is suggest a new point. And that again takes you to a form. That is very easy to fill out. Gives you the date. You're going to select what type of point it is. And based upon what you select, you know, if you select a campground, it's going to, and then you have a drop down and you can place it, so you can move this around and then drop a pin where it's located, and you can zoom in much closer and get it right on. That is important. I did have one suggested edit, and they placed it somewhere off the coast of Africa. And I think they didn't actually place it. I think they didn't place a point and it automatically placed it somewhere off the coast of Africa. But I was able to find it and get it moved to the right place. Again, these are just check boxes. So in this case, this was a campground. So what camping is there, you know, whether it's got a fee, giving the amenity name, the address, what state it's in, zip code, phone numbers, website, that contact information, who's appropriate for. So a campground that's right along the river, appropriate for both. If the campground is a half mile or a mile inland away from the river, it's going to really just be appropriate for cyclists. Boaters aren't going to really be able to get there. Short description. If you've got an image of it, that's great. Again, include your name. We can get that. Hit the submit. And if you have multiple buttons, when you hit submit, you'll have the option to re-enter the form again to go in and add another point. So those are, it's pretty straightforward. And again, I'll just show you. So in this instance, if it's say a historical site, you'll notice we don't get the different types of amenities or things within that, because typically they don't have a lot of other types of pieces, such as bike racks or camping or anything like that. And so we're tried to make the form as straightforward and simple as possible. And my email is in the chat box for anybody that wants to get in touch with me down the road, and I'll be on the call as well to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, David. I'm Russ Clark. I'm going to go on to the next segment of our learning about your community, and I want to start out by thanking you for inviting us into your community. And I'm going to share my screen. We're going to ask you to help tell us a little bit about your community through the chat box. And again, I want to make sure that everybody has signed into the chat box with their email, with their name and email address, and gives us an opportunity to make sure that we have a way to get back to you. Wait for the technology to catch up. But our whole point of this particular section of the presentation is to identify features about your community that are important to you, gather your ideas, your thoughts on what is important to you related to I'm still waiting for my computer to catch up. It's pretty slow today to move this forward. Okay, here we are. Again, tell us about your community. It's very important, as I mentioned before, that you have signed into the chat box with your name and your email address so we can continue to correspond with you. Rising Sun is about 25 river miles downstream from Cincinnati, and it has a very dynamic waterfront at this point. It's situated on a beautiful bend in the river. It has a fabulous setting, and as has been mentioned already, there's a great riverfront development in place for this community. And this is just a quick overview of what that looks like from 30,000 feet up. So what we have also looked at is what the master plan says for the community. The 2016 comprehensive plan identified some features of the community. And what this tells me as a planner is that this is a very tight-knit community. All the essential services are in close proximity to each other and to the waterfront. And you already have a few parks with trails developed, and obviously a walking trail along the riverfront itself. What we've also looked at is what's the walkability and the bikeability of your community. This is you can go to this website at walkscore.com and bring up any community, and it'll give you the relative value of where your community falls in this scale of a walker's paradise to car dependent, and Rising Sun is somewhat walkable, and on the bikeability, somewhat bikeable. There's always room for improvement when it comes to walking and biking in communities. Next step we would really like to get your involvement in is to help us understand your community a little better, is what are the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are impacting your community. And we will look at each one of these categories in a separate direction, in a separate time frame, and we will put a prompt in the chat identifying each one when we start, and we will ask that you use the chat box to actually identify what your thoughts are. Hit enter as each one. You can put as many times as you'd like. All ideas are good ideas. Prefer that you not group them all together in one big paragraph, but to put them in separately so we can quickly evaluate where your thoughts are. And it's our intent as we go through this process during the next session of review on the desktop review and visitor assessment, we will be generating a poll for you to give us feedback in real time on what your priorities are for each of these categories. So we're going to start out with, at this point, with the strengths. And I'd like to have the chat box title be put in now for strengths. And strengths are things that are internal origin, that are helpful to the community, and things that you can build on. They're things that your community does well, things that are your unique resources. And please, any and everyone can participate in this process. If you know the community, you have ideas, please identify what your thoughts are. What are the qualities that separate your community from your competitors? It's an important strength. What are some internal resources that you have that are somewhat unique to your community? Those tangible assets, all these are strengths that help make your community unique. And what do others see as your community strengths? These are just a few ideas that can help generate some thoughts, and I'm going to ask Andrea to kind of monitor the chat box for me as ideas come in. I cannot see the chat box at this point.
Sure. So we're looking for one idea at a time, please, and these are what you think are strengths of Rising Sun. What not only you see, but what others might see from a different perspective as being strengths. You know, Jack has put in there that the downtown is above the floodplain. So minimal impacts of flooding, that's very important for a riverfront park. Hopefully the rest of you have been able to find the chat and you can start putting those things in. The Ohio River, the Rising Sun sign, the Ohio River, the Rising Sun sign is great. So the sign letting you know that you are coming into Rising Sun. Our early river history is a strength. Being friendly, that's something that you can definitely build upon. The location along the riverfront is scenic and welcoming. I hope to get there someday, actually, to see it. Being close to Cincinnati, that can definitely be a strength. A safe and clean community. That's great. That's important. It's what people see when they first come into the community. Okay, we're gonna have just another minute of putting in strengths. So if you could all add your ideas, that would be helpful. We will be capturing this chat and putting it into a poll that we can prioritize what your strengths are. This is gonna help you when you go into looking at what activities you can do, what low-hanging fruit there might be that you could capitalize on, and it will help us in our assessment that we provide the community recommendations and what we see. So low crime, potential for river activities and gathering places along the riverfront. Being the smallest county in the state can be an attraction. Okay. Modern boat ramp facilities, as Brewster had pointed out too. Ample parking, easy access to the community from the river. Okay, thank you for your input. And Russ, you want to move on to the next one? You can continue to add if you would like strengths, but mark them as such, because as we move on to the next one, we will put in a different prompt to separate. So
Thank you, Andrea. Yes, thank you for your input. Again, internal origin. What are the harmful aspects in achieving your objectives? What are the weaknesses that you see that need to be overcome? And these are things along the line of what could you do to improve, things that your community lacks, things that your competitors do better than you do. Where do you have fewer resources than others may have? And then what are others likely to see as your weaknesses? So again, what are some of the weaknesses, items that you're aware of that need to be addressed over time that help prevent you from achieving what you think your community could become overall as an attraction for outdoor recreation and tourism? So please enter into chat, again, one item at a time, and we will monitor that chat before we go on to the next category. Andrea, any items coming into the chat?
yeah, we had an additional strength, but the Denver Siegman Park.
Okay.
But the weaknesses are budget strains, relying too much on riverboat casino revenue, having ideas but nothing changing. Leadership could be a weakness. Minimal bicycle infrastructure. Being the smallest county is also difficult to get funding, right? It's a strength and a weakness. Lack of volunteers. Lots of talk, no action. Who can tell me what's the population of Rising Sun? Anyone? 2460. That is very small. Yes, that could be why, you know, getting volunteers and getting action, that's a very small town. Good. 6,000 in the county, okay. Lack of information about where boaters can tie up for how long. And lack of camping facilities. No fuel available for boaters here. Well, maybe, is that a strategy to get them to come and not leave? They can't fuel up, I don't know. Excuse me.
I just wanted to add that in reviewing the comprehensive master plan in 2016, a lot of these same items that you're bringing forth were in that master plan as well. And I encourage the community to continue to reference those documents that you have spent time and energy on to create, to continue to try and move forward with the goals and objectives that have been identified in those comprehensive master plans.
A lot of apathy that needs to be overcome. Oh yeah, when you don't have fuel, they pass you by and they don't stay here if they need fuel. Well, and some of these things tie together, right? A lack of leadership leads to apathy and therefore a lack of volunteers. Right. We'll give you another minute to objectively look at what the weaknesses might be within your community.
Again, this input helps us to better understand what's important or to you relative to these 4 categories. It also, through your prioritizing through a later exercise here in a poll, helps us quickly identify some prioritized aspects to look into and make recommendations forth in our report. So this is a part of a foundation of understanding your community, being able to provide some input into that process.
Okay. Again, if you have some weaknesses that you still want to enter, make sure that you title them as such, because we'll be moving on to opportunities now. Russ?
Yes, opportunities, external origin that attribute to the environment of your community. What are those opportunities, things to explore? Again, it's external, underserved markets, emerging need in your community. What trends could you take advantage of that you're aware of? What don't we have in our community that would make our community better? And how can you turn your strengths into opportunities? So several categories may overlap here, and that's fine. We often find that the opportunities and strengths are some of the longest lists that are generated through this process, and that's great, but it's also very important to understand where our challenges are with this process. So please enter your thoughts, again, one at a time in the chat box. It helps us to better understand what's important to you. Opportunities coming into the chat box?
Yes. Hold on a second. Being a destination and not living event to event, is that an opportunity or is that a weakness? That could be a weakness. Again, like Russ said, a lot of these can overlap. Opportunities, we need employment, businesses to locate here. One opportunity is so opportunity could be businesses that locate there. One that Jack said is develop a multi-use trail to connect the park to downtown. There's an opportunity. Maybe there's a way that you can do that by road or separated bike lanes, even as a demonstration project. Another opportunity is the lack of public gathering places. So there's an opportunity to make new ones. Opportunities are connections to other river towns. Certainly we see that when we're talking about long distance trails, is that making those connections is an effort. Like a rising tide raises all boats. You benefit from multi-day tourism and leveraging each other's successes. Actively promote river-related recreation. Develop a historic walking tour. That's a great idea, yeah. Any other opportunities? Low-hanging fruit or long-term? You know, maybe there's something that you see a long way on the horizon that's going to cost a lot of money, but if you start looking at it now and how that can happen, could be realized as an opportunity. Work better with Rabbit Hash in Kentucky, across the river. I think I heard somebody say that there's a ferry that goes back and forth. There's an opportunity. A zip line, you could do a zip line across to the river. That's my own opportunity idea. More state markers to get in there for historical purposes or recreation for that matter, because markers are expensive. Oh, that makes sense now. The ferry is owned and operated by the casino. Yes. They understand the value of bringing people in from somewhere else. All right, about another minute to enter your opportunities, what you see as opportunities for a rising sun.
Things to explore.
Other ways to connect to the Ohio River and outdoor recreation. Tour groups, buses, right? Okay, again, if you're going to enter another opportunity, please at least mark it with an O at the beginning so that we can not get them confused with our next category, which is threats.
Threats. Now, the next category, fourth category, is threats of external origin. Things to minimize. What are emerging competitors? What threats could harm your community? What threats do your weaknesses expose you to? And are there any potential regulatory challenges that will become threats? This, just off the top of your head, what are some of the threats that are coming in from outside to your community? Please list those in the chat box one at a time, as we've been doing. And as I mentioned before, we're diligently working behind the scenes here, trying to compile this information, and we will bring forth a poll for you to help identify your priorities for each of these four categories. Threats coming into the chat box?
Sure. There appears to be a concern about the loss of casino wagering money, funding coming from the casino, or if the casino were to leave. An aging population, and if your population is small, that's an important concern. The excuse me. Well, and also if you have an aging population and you're not bringing in a younger population retaining or attracting, then you're going to have a net loss there. Need those fresh ideas and enthusiasm. Another threat is the perception of the Ohio River as dangerous. Right. How many people do not even recreate on the Ohio because it's dangerous, or is it perceived as being a dirty river that is only used for industry? Another threat is the failure of Main Street leadership. And again, apathy, weaknesses and threats. A lot of these things overlap. Aging infrastructure, need for ongoing maintenance and upgrades to public facilities. Right, something that's being experienced in many places. A threat is that local K-12 education is not focused on local history, local geography, or even the Ohio River. So you're not bringing your population along to understand the value of the resources that are right there in their backyard. Okay, we got about another minute on this.
Yeah, things to minimize. What threats are coming forth to your community? Complete this listing of the 4 categories.
Our neighboring counties are doing things so much better, and we're getting off the radar. Are you appropriately capturing the opportunities that you do have?
It is definitely our intent through this process with fresh eyes to provide some recommendations on the low-hanging fruit that aren't necessarily things that are long-term but very short-term or immediate actions you can take to help improve the situation on outdoor recreation, enhancement, and tourism. This effort, go ahead.
We're not trying to be overly critical, but we're helping you to take a realistic look at what your community has or what they could have, so that you can move forward and capture the benefits of this potential.
That's about the time for completing the SWOT analysis. So we'll close that out at this point. Thank you very much for all of your efforts. We will begin capturing that information and bring it back to you. Next on the agenda, before I turn it back over to Jack, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that we have done a desktop review summary as part of our efforts and a visitor assessment summary. And these documents will be part of our information of the recommendations that we provide to you. So Jack, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I'll unshare my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Yeah, as soon as you unshare, I'm going to try to share my screen. There we go. Hopefully we're seeing a PowerPoint. So yeah, as Russ explained, part of the activities in this whole review process was to, in advance of today, kind of do a deep dive into both what visitors see before they come to Rising Sun and what they see when they might arrive. So what is a desktop review? What it is, it's another example of a secret shopper, if you will. So we recruited 6 individual volunteers to answer the question, if I'm going to come to Rising Sun for a weekend, what would I be able to find there? And so it's an online search project. And of those 6 individuals, we had 3 college students from Thomas More University. So we had sort of a perspective from young people in their early 20s, to folks who live close to Rising Sun, know a little bit about Rising Sun, and others who are further away. So essentially we said, get online, find out what you can find, and then give us a report of that. So the first website we went to was obviously the Ohio County Tourism website. And just to pause for a moment, Kendall will receive, part of her deliverables will be this write-up of all 6 of these. So I'm providing a summary, but you'll get the detailed write-up for each individual. But among the strengths that the folks saw with your website, Kendall, was its landing page. It's a very strong visual element, that view of the river and sort of a hazy, foggy background. Your branding is really strong. From a logistical standpoint, the navigation bar was easy to find, easy to use. At least 2 people complimented the fact that you have a downloadable visitor guide, PDF. That's very handy for somebody who might be more map oriented and wants to have that in hand when they arrive. And then also the idea that they can sign up for a newsletter and stay engaged with you ongoing. So overall, the impression was your website is well designed, very visually appealing. Some suggestions that were offered for your consideration are, for example, on the Where to Eat tab, it was noticed that you have maybe 9 or 12 restaurants, but there's really no prioritization. So you might consider prioritizing or naming the first ones that are dine-in restaurants, for example, Jack's or the Mexican restaurant or the diner there on Main Street, in front of fast food or other opportunities. On the Where to Stay tab, now this was done back in early October, so I apologize if these have been upgraded since then, but it was noticed on 1 or 2 of the hyperlinks to Where to Stay, they weren't current. So for example, I went to the Empire Hotel, tried to link forward to it and got lost. And in October, I think the Courtyard was still listed as an overnight lodging facility, and I don't think that's the case anymore. Another thing you might want to consider going forward is dedicating a separate web page or sections that are solely focused on businesses, services, and amenities on or near the Ohio River. So it might be more of an outdoor recreation kind of category, river-related recreation that might cater to boaters, paddlers, fishermen, and bicyclists. I will point out, with your boat ramps, and I know from reading local news, you have a very strong fishing constituency that uses the boat ramps, bass tournaments, catfish tournaments, and the like. So maybe promoting that in a little more assertive fashion might be beneficial. We also, folks went to whatever website popped up in their Google search, and certainly the City of Rising Sun's website came up. It was noted that it has a very strong visual impacts and really nice photos of downtown, Main Street, special events, the Riverfront Park, the Dine and Play, Shop and Stay tab. Very functional. It takes you right to a sort of a text listing of opportunities with hyperlink connections and the upcoming events tab. But overall, it's recognized that that is a government website, and its primary purpose is to serve the local residents who need to interact with city services. It's not meant to be a tourism website. But on the other hand, if somebody's just searching, that's what might pop up. The group also, or a couple people also looked at the Ohio County Historical Society's webpage, or website. Very nice, very informative. A suggestion might be to consider, if it's not there, I'm not sure it is, but perhaps hyperlinks connecting over to the tourism webpage, or some information about what to do if you come to Rising Sun. And then some of the folks also just went to these other social media type platforms, Yelp.com, TripAdvisor.com, Travel Indiana, Facebook, etc. And those are crowdsourced information. They really, it's whatever, whoever uses those tends to plug in the information. So it's not that you can control it, but it might be something you want to always kind of monitor to see what others are saying about Rising Sun. So for example, one of those sites I went to, and what to do near Rising Sun, it showed something in Brookville, Indiana, or another one showed something on the west side of Cincinnati, which really isn't that close to Rising Sun and doesn't do a lot to promote Rising Sun itself. And then here's an example on the TripAdvisor, the top 5 best things to do in Rising Sun. Again, these are crowdsourced, but it mentioned the Red Wolf Sanctuary, which is a wonderful facility. My family and I visited that just this fall. Talked about the Scenic Byway, and then 2 mentions of the casino. I wonder who's typing those in. And obviously the Ohio County Historical Society. So again, Kendall, you'll receive the full packet of everyone's comments. I think that might be helpful to reflect on as you move forward this spring. The next thing that was accomplished was a Rivertown review, a visitor assessment. And this was very simple. My wife and I spent an afternoon in Rising Sun in early October. It was a Thursday. The weather was just low mid 70s. It was just a fantastic day. But we parked our vehicle right there on Main Street. We walked down to the river. We explored the Riverfront Park, and then kind of returned back up Main Street and had lunch. And using the National Park Service's sort of template, we basically did an audit, if you will, of things we saw and found. And certainly, I think one of the most phenomenal things Rising Sun has going for it is at the Riverfront Park. Brewster mentioned that at the very beginning. You are envied, I will say you are envied up and down the Ohio River for what's been developed at your Riverfront Park. It's just spectacular. And from my background, I'm a landscape architect by training. I spent 30 plus years in public parks in the greater Cincinnati area. You've done a bang up job. The detailing there, the landscape architectural details, it's very tasteful, it's consistent. It's just really something I know you should be and are very proud of. The signage that you have this along your walkways, interpretive signage, but it's all over downtown. I didn't get other photographs, but along some of your buildings, you have historical interpretive information. It just makes an interesting, hour or two to spend strolling along the park, learning about the history and about the Ohio River. And as Brew mentioned, others have mentioned the fact that you had the courtesy dock at the one boat ramp across from Max Seaplane Service. That is an amenity that's envied. It's just not that common up and down the river, and that's something might be an opportunity to expand on going forward. The fact that there's been so much investment into the ADA ramp, again, I can't think of another type facility like that up and down the Ohio River, and that might be an opportunity to take advantage of. Maybe it's Special Olympic fishing tournament on the banks of the Ohio River, or things geared towards senior citizens. Take advantage of that asset and maybe make it a differentiator for Rising Sun. And then if I'm a boater and I've come off the river and I'm venturing into town, this is what I'll see. I'll see two murals welcome me to Rising Sun. Very, very nice. The only suggestion there is starting to look maybe a little bit tired. So that's something that the city or whoever's in charge of those might want to kind of put in their 10-year plan to make sure those are continually touched up or maybe even redone. Front Street is an amenity all to itself. It's mostly residential, but you do have the Empire Hotel on Front Street, very classic 19th century, early 20th century architecture. It's the quintessential historic downtown amenity. Just from a personal observation, it would be interesting if there's ever opportunities to see other commercial activities along Front Street. I know the Courtyard, when it was up and running as a restaurant, my wife and friends and I would go down there and take advantage of that. That's really cool to have something like that on the river. So it might be something to think about in the future. And then turning up Main Street, your Main Street, that 3-block section is just outstanding. The wide sidewalks are welcoming to visitors. Again, like the park, your architectural detailing, the lampposts, the signage banners, the benches, the trash receptacle, all that has a very astute kind of design branding standard that you've followed and you've taken care of, and I just compliment you for that. You see the mural on this historic building. There's a number of these murals throughout the downtown that, again, make Rising Sun a very unique place to visit. And then you're addressing some basic creature comforts. Public restrooms, the lower image is along Front Street, so that serves the boating community. The transient boater has an opportunity to use a public restroom, and then on Main Street you have another one. Again, there are not many little communities along the Ohio River that have even one public restroom facility located so close to the river and where tourists are going to congregate. And then I want to point out some recently installed historical markers. I think Cliff even mentioned this one, the Berkshire Family House. This is a brand new historical marker that we noticed, and I read an article in the local paper about 12 months ago talking about the new owners of that property and how they're making investments to improve that. The Lewis and Clark Auto Trail is very clearly marked along 56 as you come into downtown Rising Sun. And then back at the boat ramps, these are some wayfinding signage at the multi-lane boat ramp. Very important to tell that boater who comes off the river where downtown is, how far it is. So that is very good. Again, that's part of that aging infrastructure. I would just keep my eye on the ball and think about when it's time to make sure those get upgraded. So some overall observations in the next couple of slides. Number one, Rising Sun is just, it's charming. It's a charming town. It has a charming business district. Your Riverfront Park is world class for a community your size. It's just outstanding. It's a differentiator, I think, and something that maybe you can leverage forward. Things you might want to consider in the future is how you approach your wayfinding signage for boaters. So I may have missed it, but if I'm driving from Aurora into Rising Sun or from Patriot up to Rising Sun, I don't recall seeing much in the way of directional signs pointing me towards those boat ramps along the river. And likewise, on some of the internet platforms, I don't remember seeing that pointed out very assertively. So maybe look at the signage and then think about what it is to do on the river, promote the river for outdoor recreation, for boating, fishing, paddling, and even bicycling along the river. And speaking of bicycling, that was one thing we noticed. We only saw one bike rack throughout downtown Rising Sun. It was a decorative rack over by the playground along the Riverfront Park. So you might want to consider as a project installing some bike racks along Main Street. That in itself says bicycling is welcome. Signage for share the road. You know, Rising Sun is such a quiet little town. It's, for most bicyclists, it is safe to bike on the roads throughout Rising Sun. But maybe some signage informing motorists that this is bike-friendly community and be mindful of those cycling. And then sort of a big audacious goal would be, think about the idea to connect a multi-use trail downstream to Denver Siegmund Park and also upstream up to the little farm on the river RV park there about a mile upstream of Rising Sun. And again, I'm very familiar with bike trail planning in the tri-state area, and I know at one point there was a plan to connect Aurora and Rising Sun with a bike trail, and unfortunately that did not materialize, but it might be something to put back on the radar. And I know the leaders of Aurora and Dearborn County would welcome that conversation to see if that might be something to connect those river communities. And again, my background is in parks, and I always think about aging infrastructure. So hopefully the City of Rising Sun, the Park Board, Rising Sun and Ohio County Park Board are thinking about a 10-year long master plan in terms of addressing infrastructure issues. So with that, I wrap up my part of the program here with that image there on the right. Again, kind of Rising Sun downtown is phenomenal. And think about how you can leverage the assets from downstream from Denver Siegmund Park to the RV park on the upstream end, the casino ferry. Think of maybe some creative ways to leverage those things to entice people to come to Rising Sun and spend a day or spend a weekend. So with that, I'm going to unshare, Russ, and turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Jack. That is very, very helpful. At this point, I would like to ask Helen Sievers to kind of come up and share her screen on the polling aspect of what the SWOT analysis has told us so far, so you can participate in identifying what some of your priorities may be for each of these 4 categories. Helen?
Yeah, I'll offer a little explanation before I share the poll. You know, we did that SWOT analysis using 4 categories: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For the last 3 of those, we were able to consolidate your responses into 10 or fewer questions. So Zoom limits the number of choices, multiple choices in a poll question to 10. So for strengths, we actually have 2 questions. And what we'd like you to do is look at the entirety of questions 1 and 2, and then make your selection for your top 3 out of questions 1 and 2. And then it's a little bit more straightforward for weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Those are each just 1 question for which we ask you to give your top 3, or if you have fewer, that's all right. It's not a fancy polling system, and there are probably ways it could be done better, but this is the way we're doing it. So I've, with the help of Faith Welty, incorporated all of your feedback from the chat box into this poll, which I will now endeavor to share. It says my polling session is inactive. Let me work on this.
I think while Helen's working on that, this might be a good opportunity. We've really put a lot of information out there, and we've asked you to put things in the chat. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself. We've built in a few minutes into the schedule that we're not running behind or anything. So if you have some comments or questions, now might be a really good time after we do the poll. That did come up, Helen.
The poll is up?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yay, it didn't tell me that.
So we will come back to that opportunity for questions and comments. Again, you want to explain, Helen, what the 1 and 2? Oh, I see. You scroll down.
Yes, please scroll down to see question 2 and the next category. So look, your first comes up with question 1 and some choices. Scroll down, look at question 2, and then make your first selection on strengths from those choices in 1 and 2.
And you will have to enter all of your selections before you hit submit.
Correct.
But between question 1 and 2, you want people to pick a total of 3. Is that correct?
Correct.
But the bottom line is you need to have at least 1 choice in each question.
Right, and that answer in A not applicable, you can use on question 2 if you don't need to, if you don't want to enter anything from that question.
So Helen, can you see in real time if answers are coming in?
Oddly, no, I can't. So I kind of feel like I'm flying blind a little bit here, but I think I will be able to share the results when we close the polling.
We've so far had 2 people respond. So somehow I'm in charge of polling here, Helen,
Okay,
even though
David, you take the lead on it then.
Well, we've had 2 people respond so far.
Great.
So we want everybody to respond, right? Even
Yes.
if you're not from Rising Sun, we want everybody to respond.
So this is 3 down and 2 across, and 6 in the center would just be like having your division symbol right here. So let me, I know I can darken these lines. So I started, I sit up and do all these things, and I realized that for the, it's not as easy as.
Somebody might want to put on mute.
Down here would be an extra.
Not sure who that is. Okay, any polls coming in, David?
Yes, we have 6
I'm gonna
people
move to because
have polled so far.
I'm just talking away here.
Should we give another couple minutes?
I'd say at least another minute or two.
There we go. Share this one.
Please remember that you need to scroll all the way down and vote on all the categories before submit.
This one over and share this one.
So have at least one choice from each of those categories.
Now, okay, here's the new screen.
I wonder if that is being held up by the fact that you may not have picked one from the second section.
There we go. Okay.
Of number 1.
3 times 4 is equal to 12. You'll notice that if once the kids are learning division, they will just see this is the number 12.
Yeah, get it on question 2. That's what answer 8 in A or not applicable is for. It gives you an option to basically bypass the selections in question 2 and keep on moving.
When it goes to division, it shows them exactly where.
So David Wicks, you're the one who needs to mute, it appears. Which is unfortunate since he needs to talk.
It's a great opportunity for folks to ask any questions they may have.
Right. So going back to my offer of if you have questions, comments at this point, we are very interested in hearing from you. Or if you're having any trouble submitting your results, put it in the chat and Helen will try and help.
I hope this is a bit clearer now. My wife is a 2nd grade teacher and is on NTI, and so that was the background noise. So I've moved rooms and we'll see if this works. Should I end polling? We have 9 people finishing.
That sounds good.
So we'll see if I can. And can people see it?
Yes.
So Helen, do you want to interpret this and I'll scroll down?
I can't see it, so I'm gonna pass it to Russ.
Okay, well, I'll go through it. You know, the strengths, it's pretty straightforward. Strengths, the 2 top strengths are Riverfront Park, and our location along the riverfront is scenic and welcoming. And the second part is the potential for river activities and gathering places for along the riverfront and modern boat ramp facilities. And so those are the top 4. And all of these will be compiled and shared with each other. One of the challenges that we have is that we want to have more input on this. And so the National Park Service folks will be sending this out as part of the homework. Encourage it to go on. Let me scroll on down to question 2. And so if we look at our weaknesses, it's the budget and much reliance on casino revenue. And rest are pretty straightforward across. Sort of interestingly, the smallest county did not get any votes. So that might not really be a weakness. I don't know. Under opportunities, actively promoting river-related recreation might be one of the largest opportunities. Also, maybe develop a trail to Denver Siegman Park, and being a destination, not living by event to event. The last one with threats, it's the same one as earlier, lack of funding and the possible relationship to the casino, and if there's a loss to the casino. And so I'd like to maybe share my screen here. And is there anything else that we need to do, or Helen, or Russ?
I think that, again, if anybody has any questions, let's jump in and try and deal with some of those questions before we go into the next session of brainstorming. The SWOT analysis has given a little bit of a background to look at the future here. So Andrea, you want to lead us through brainstorming, please?
Sure. Okay. Hold on a second. So if we were doing this in person, we would have had flip charts, and we would have broken into small groups, and we would have had a lot of communication and talking and ideas being thrown out. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So we're going to try to do this within the chat. Russ is sharing his screen. We're gonna brainstorm ideas for the community to enhance outdoor recreation opportunities and promote tourism related to the Ohio River. That's what's going to appear in the prompt, so that you will know what you're submitting. With everything that you've heard from the very beginning of the presenters, the tools that are out there, the Rivertown assessment, the digital desktop review, the assessment that Jack did, all of the opportunities that you've heard about from the digital guide, from the Lewis and Clark site, and everybody who has provided input as far as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now is your time to kind of help to put that into some ideas. And there will be some overlapping. For instance, what we see as opportunities, or what you saw as opportunities, will come up as ideas for the way for the community to enhance these opportunities. So there will be some overlap, but we want to know what kind of came to the surface for you. What are you thinking? What are you, were there new ideas that came up? Or are you inspired to pursue some other opportunities or some other ideas that may be low-hanging fruit or maybe long-term? And we would like you to put that in the chat. Sometimes they when we're in person, we might kick it off by like a big picture kind of thing. If you could ask a genie to solve one problem related to outdoor recreation and tourism in your community, then what would you ask that genie to do? So, you know, what are the, don't be afraid to put in big ideas here as well. We will do some of the work of parsing that out into long-term, short-term goals, and we will be presenting them back to you as well, that you will be prioritizing them. That will be part of the homework. So you can start putting your ideas into the chat. Think in terms of maybe restarting and reimagining your tourism. How do you recover from COVID? What are some steps that you can take to embrace the sustainable tourism aspects, or the way that the whole world has shifted to utilizing outdoor recreation as a way of coping with all of this? All ideas are good ideas, big ones, small ones. We're going through the process here of finding ideas and refining them. We're basically harvesting ideas. So anyone can put them in the chat box. Thank you, Helen. What are your ideas to further engage your town with the Ohio River, with the Ohio River Recreation Trail, with the Lewis and Clark Trail, with outdoor recreation? What are some trip opportunities or activities that people might embrace, that you could promote, or that you could invest in? Think about connections outside the town. Early action projects or long-term ones. Is there anything that you've thought about? Wow, this would be really great if Rising Sun just had this, or if we could just get the volunteers and the people behind this idea, this would be great. Or I've always wanted this in Rising Sun. Or I see what Rabbit Hash has and I want one of those. Isn't that the town that has a dog for a mayor? Maybe that's not what you want. I don't know. And also be thinking about how the Ohio River Recreation Trail can be beneficial to those efforts. How can you tie into ORRT to leverage the many things, opportunities, resources, sites, and amenities that you have? How can the Ohio River Recreation Trail help that as well? So I'm going to read through some of these. I'm going to lose my notes section. We will be emailing you this list, and we will be asking you to identify your top 3 votes, again, like we did with the SWOT analysis. And this will be an accumulation of everyone's ideas for how they can, their brainstorming ideas for Rising Sun. Sorry. Okay. I'm working with new technology here today too, so okay, so we have invitations to come visit, and thank yous for us doing this. Create a Bike the Sun special event, a 25-mile bike ride through Ohio County, begin and end in Rising Sun. Could be a fundraising event. Wow. It's a great idea. Have a river cleanup day. Always good in the spring. You know, a lot of stormwater trash comes down. People like to help with this type of thing too. And it gets people engaged, and then they feel a sense of stewardship and they want to take care of the things that they have. Having tables and chairs where the fountain used to be, under the fountain. Oh, I guess the fountain's not there anymore. Sorry, I'm having trouble here.
Again, I just want to reinforce what Andrea said. All ideas are good ideas at this point, whether they're short-term, long-term, expensive or inexpensive. It's just important to understand what's, to us, to understand what's important to you relative to looking at the future for your community.
Right. Ferry service along and across the river from community to community. More community involvement. Have a bed and breakfast riverboat stop in town. Ah, yeah. There are boats that are that do overnight tours and cruises, I would assume, that I don't know if those stop there or not. Clean up River Day. Transient boat dock, outstanding boat ramp, easy access to amenities. Consider positioning Rising Sun as Southeast Indiana's gateway to the Ohio. Yeah, that's great. Establish seasonal special camping area near downtown for cyclists and boaters. And they could register people online with the police department. And look at some of the other communities along the way that are doing such a thing and how it's working for them. Okay, under the pavilion, that makes sense. I really enjoyed the pictures that Jack put up of that pavilion that you have on the riverfront. That's a huge asset. Organize a round trip Rising Sun to Rabbit Hash canoe kayak race. Ah, okay. Possibly do a planning process to figure out what's next if the casino closes. And weddings in Rising Sun. I think that pavilion that you have right on the river is a perfect opportunity. And a restaurant on the water at the end of Main Street. Right. Okay. Just a few more minutes. Be sure to put in all of your brainstorming ideas. And you can often, you can tell that sometimes one person's idea inspires an idea in someone else, and that's part of what brainstorming is all about.
These are all excellent suggestions that are coming forth in the chat box.
Do you do any, an antique mall, do you do any programming along the river? Does the Historical Society do tours? Could you build upon that? Could you do a kayaking tour along the river that's historical? Kind of incorporating the different benefits and strengths that you have in your community. Is there a bike route to the casino? Are there markers on the way to the casino that talk about the history or the recreation opportunities? I have another question. Is there topography that goes up? Are those hills to the northwest? Or I would assume that by Rising Sun, it's all flat. That's a definite opportunity to utilize biking. Oh, partner with Sun King Brewery out of Indy. Yeah, I always say that all trails lead to beer. So that's a perfect opportunity. That's all about economic development and partnerships. I like that idea. Work with Boone County Library to merge our Underground Railroad history. Yes, so you could be doing a multi-county Underground Railroad history that leverages, maybe do a series of those kinds of programs. Okay, I think that you can keep entering your brainstorming ideas. The partnership ideas with Aurora and Lawrenceburg, how do you even start? Yes, we can, I think we can help you with that. That's a good idea, and that's part of what us wanting to get all of the trail river towns that we've done reviews with together in a summit so that we can mutually realize those benefits, leverage each other's strengths and weaknesses, and learn from each other's best management practices, see where people have succeeded or maybe where they've had challenges and help each other out. That is the whole goal of the Rivertown Review Summit that we hope to have someday. Hopefully not online, hopefully in person. So keep paying attention to that one. Okay, install bike racks. Make it a bike-friendly community. Okay, I think I'm gonna hand it over to Russ now.
Okay.
I'm not looking at my notes, sorry.
It's all right, that's fine. Thank you, Andrea. At this next stage, we are going to be assigning you some homework, folks. We're going to invite you to look at your own town with fresh eyes using the perspective that we've looked at today. Take a note to other ideas and opportunities that may occur to you that we started to engage in with the SWOT analysis and the brainstorming, so you can continue to provide additional input in that process. And what other contacts will be valuable partners in this process, and who else should we be reaching out to help with this process is something that everyone needs to think about. And we encourage you to please visit the 3 websites, and most importantly, give us a quick little paragraph, few sentences to describe a perfect day in your community. Again, where do you take a visitor or family when they come to your community? What does that day look like? Those little stories help us better understand what's important in your community, what you feel your most valuable assets are, and collectively, we begin to tell a story of your community through this process. So that's going to come to you through an email and a homework assignment. And beyond that, next steps, we're going to be going into a process where our team will summarize the SWOT analysis and brainstorming list, and we'll provide an opportunity for all the meeting participants to receive this information, and then ask that you help prioritize from the brainstorming list and even back on the SWOT list, short and long-term goals that are important to you that should be considered for the future in your community. We'll ask that you provide return that information to us by February 3rd. We will get our information out to you on January 20th or earlier. And then we intend to try and put together our recommendation packet with a list of resources and send to your community by March of 2021. And as mentioned numerous times, in 2021, we will be hosting a Rivertown Review Summit. That date is yet to be determined. So again, highlight the 20th of January. We'll be sending out by that point an email with the summary of the SWOT analysis brainstorming list. We'll ask you to do your homework, to visit the websites for the organizations involved with this process, and then identify a perfect day in your community, the little storyline, identify your short and long-term goals from the brainstorming list, and return that to us February 3rd. And we look forward to putting together a summary of our findings in March of 2021. So with that, we are at the point where we really do want to encourage questions and do a wrap up on this session. And I really am thankful for your time. Thank you for inviting us into your community. And I'm really looking forward to digesting all the input that you put together for us today. Any other team members have some closing remarks? We go into questions.
Yeah, I'll jump in. This is Jack. I just want to specifically thank Kendall, Jamie, Lane, and Cliff for being a part of this today. We really appreciate your active participation. I'm going to continue to work closely with Kendall over the next month as we collect some of this further information from you. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any specific questions. To your one question, Kendall, in the chat, how do you get started? I will comment, one of the desktop reviews that was done for Rising Sun was from somebody from the Dearborn County One Dearborn Economic Development Group. So they've put a little investment in your community already. And maybe I'll tap you, Kendall, to maybe reciprocate when we work with Lawrenceburg and Aurora. Maybe you could give me 40 minutes of your time to do one of those reviews. It's just a great way to interact and look at what other towns are doing. And I know they'd be glad to give you feedback and see what might be able to be done together in the future.
Thank you, Jack. Again, any questions folks may have?
We invite you to unmute yourself and join in. You could even comment on whether or not you feel this is beneficial for your community.
I'll introduce myself if that's okay. I'm Christy Knoll. I'm the Executive Director for the Boone Conservancy. We are a land trust across the river from you all. And we are trying to figure out how to have more Ohio River access. We really, we've got so much beautiful riverfront in Boone County and you can't access it. So Russ invited me to participate today. I hope you all don't mind. We are light years behind you guys with our amenities on the river, but it would be great to have some boat ramps and some trails. So that's kind of what where we're starting and going to go from there. But I'm amazed at Rising Sun and what a great little community it is. So thank you for letting me be here today.
For joining us.
Yeah, I want to jump in and thank everybody for doing this, and Kendall for you for being involved and heading this up for Rising Sun. I think it never hurts to continually review, and go back over all the things we've done. It's been a long process in this community over the last 25 years since the boat came to town, trying to put together amenities and grow and change things, and it's been a long process. And Jack, was your father John?
Yes, yes it was.
Well, John hired me to work at the First National Bank in Beebe, Indiana, right after I got out of college, and that's been a while ago. But he was a great guy. I really appreciated him.
Well, it is a small town.
Thank you. That was back in the 70s, David. That's a long time ago.
No, it was the 80s, so don't get me. It was still a long time ago.
That really is a small town. Yeah, and I think that to Lane's point, when he first started talking, it is important to celebrate your successes. Too often you get down the road and you don't realize that you really have had a lot of successes, that you've made great progress, and to celebrate those things. Maybe you have an event that celebrates all those great things that you already have done, and then gives you an opportunity to ask the community for other ideas moving forward. Look what we've already accomplished, and here's where we can go from here.
And Andrea, if I could just add, this was a wonderful discussion. I learned a lot about Rising Sun. It just reconfirmed all of my wonderful impressions and experiences with the community. And we don't want to overpromise what we might be able to do as an organization to be helpful to you all. But I do think that we can, as we build out our our website and our communication program, reaching people up and down the river, and other travel and tourism entities, some of the statewide entities that we've been working with in the 3 states, the Travel and Tourism Bureau statewide, that what the unique angle we can provide is helping people who are interested in cycling and paddling and power boating and fishing and nature appreciation to understand that there are these incredible assets that they can take advantage of that are right here in their backyard, and reach that particular set of constituencies with information about not only what you have to offer, but help them understand what they could do if they spent a day, a weekend, or did a multi-day trip touching base with your community and others along the way. So we do think we have a constituency that we can help deliver to you all, and what we're obviously trying to do is help you all think through, and hopefully we can provide a little assistance in what is it that is affordable, doable, in the relatively short term, not 10 years from now, that would make you guys even more attractive to folks interested in adventure travel and tourism along this corridor. And again, we just look forward to collaborating with you and helping to market and sell you, because that helps us implement the agenda we have. And a key part of that, as part of your homework, is saying, gee, what would be the ideal day that a person, a family, what would they do in your community if they spent an entire day or even a weekend? We will then take that information, incorporate in our website with pictures, videos, basically what is it about Rising Sun that people ought to be aware of and get excited about if they knew. And we are aiming to eventually do the same with every one of the river communities along the corridor. So thanks so much. Looking forward to working with you all.
So Russ, you want to take us out, or Jack?
We'll come at that point where we will close out this workshop and start doing our efforts to reach out to you folks. And thank you again for inviting us into your community. It has resulted in some great input. It gives us something to work towards in terms of making recommendations. And I just want to say that, you know, my hat's off to the community and how much they have already accomplished. You know, already engaged with the Lewis and Clark Historic Trail System, already on the map with the digital guide, but those are some of the low-hanging fruit opportunities that are out there. We need to keep up that effort and help promote the communities along the Ohio River Recreation Trail. Again, thank you for your time and inviting us into your community.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.